Hey, it's Juck. Sorry, guys. Our intro doesn't want to play. It's Juck. It's Dillon Davis joining me this morning. Dillon, how we doing, buddy?
Doing about as well as anybody else probably is doing that's watching
Yeah.
the show right now. But frankly, just kind of feel apathetic, which is sad in its own right. But I just feel apathetic today. Yeah.
You know, I understand what you mean, apathetic. I mean, I'm not really even disappointed. I'm just disgusted. And I want to kind of start together going over the game. There was a lot of action in that game, a lot of different things to talk about. And I want to go over that. And then I kind of want to go over big picture. I want to bring the chat in because the boys are fired up. I think we had like 70 comments in here before we even started.
Yep.
So we'll get that rolling. But you and I talked on Tuesday, and we said about the game, the only way we saw them winning. All right, I guess nothing's playing, so forget that. That took me like 25 minutes to load all this crap up. But we said that the only way we saw them winning was if they had to score 24 points. 24 points, 17 at minimum.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us thought for a second that Ohio State couldn't get to that number. It really never crossed our minds. But we said Ohio State had to beat themselves, turnovers, giving them points, giving them possessions down early or down in Buckeye territory. And that's the only way they could possibly get to that 24 points that they needed. We never saw this coming from the offense. And that to me was absolutely stunning, particularly shutout in the second half against a defense that just hasn't been very good all year. They got one bright spot. It's right there in the middle, right in the guts of the defense. And Will Johnson not playing. So what's your take on the offensive game plan, banging their head against the wall over and over and over again for 77 total yards in the entire game?
It's baffling. Like I think anybody else, would say it's absolutely baffling. As you mentioned, Michigan had one advantage to exploit on either side of the field in this matchup, and it was Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham in the interior of that defensive line against that offensive line of Ohio State. And Chip Kelly and that offensive staff just decided like they were going to, take that head on repeatedly, just take that head on. And it was just baffling to me. Look, JJ and Emeka combined for 5 targets in the second half. 5 targets in the second half. Jeremiah didn't have one outside of the 2 he had on the first drive in the second half. And that's just coaching malpractice. Like that, those are your 2 guys, and you just decided to make them non-factors. Nothing Michigan did, and we saw earlier in the game that they had no answer for those guys, especially JJ. Nothing Michigan decided as a coaching staff that you're just going to make those guys non-factors in this game. And just everything about it was coaching malpractice. And I know a lot of times after losses like this, the easiest thing to do is to blame coaching, and sometimes it drives me crazy. But truly, what the offensive staff, with the game plan that they came up with, and what they tried to do yesterday, from to the bitter end, was just hard to fathom. I don't know how you get to that point. I don't. We'll have more time to talk to these guys hopefully in the coming days. Of course, we didn't get any coordinator after the game, so Chip Kelly didn't have to answer a damn thing, about what we saw out of his offense. So hopefully we'll get to talk to some guys some more in the coming days to ask some of these questions, because it was just baffling. I don't have anything to give anybody because I don't know how they got to that point.
I would love to know how it is that we go from last year speaking to every coordinator after each game to this year. Supposedly we started off rotating, right?
Yeah.
Now you got nobody yesterday?
No, we haven't gotten anybody coordinator wise after games for a little while now. At least for.
Is there an explanation?
No. If I imagine if one were given, it would be more about the fact that we'd get one every week, but that's still not good enough either. So look, in the past, and as this has gone on in the past, Ohio State's been winning, so it's not been a huge deal. Obviously, we still want to talk to these guys, and there are still things we'd like to ask them after games, particular things that happened during the game. But with wins, it's not quite as pressing, obviously. And on a day like this, day like yesterday, it was a glaring, omission from the post game press conference that you didn't get to talk to the one guy who kind of submarined the entire season, or and they're certainly submarined that game. Starting with I know players play. Ultimately, you have to go out there and execute. There's plenty of blame to be passed around for some of the the guys out on the field, but by and large, I don't really care what Will Howard did or didn't do. Obviously, the turnovers were big. That offensive game plan would have been the story of the game. If Ohio State would have won that game 16-13 or 17-13, we'd be talking about that offensive game plan today still, because it was absolutely the single biggest takeaway of that game. Yeah,
it's interesting. I was thinking during the game, and as we started getting into the third, late into the third, into the fourth, I'm thinking, man, we're only going to win this thing by one score, and I wonder if I should take the approach that I'm irritated that we only won by one score, or just, wipe it away. Who cares? It was the game. We won the game. Still, just so I couldn't fathom that we were actually going to lose when that thing hit triple zeros. I just couldn't grasp it. I couldn't put my mind around it. And when we talk about the game plan, Ryan Day talked about the running game afterwards, and it just seemed like he was adamant. And we've heard all week, 23 out of the last 24 years, the team with the most rushing yards won the game. The problem is, Dylan, the team with the most rushing yards is usually just the better team, right? That doesn't mean you just bang your head against the wall when you've got obvious advantages. JJ could not be covered, and when they doubled him, Carnell could not be covered. They had to tackle JJ for PIs twice to save themselves. Props to them. It worked the first time. We ended up missing a field goal and not scoring points when that kid did that. Oh, and we hit the field goal on that one.
Yeah.
But I just could not grasp that they had in their head. It was one of two things. They felt they really needed to win that rushing yard battle, or else they just couldn't win. Like, you couldn't win without that. Or this had something to do with the whole toughness thing, and I'm going to beat them at their own game, and we're tough. And they did play tough. I thought the dudes played tough as hell. This wasn't – I've criticized these guys plenty this year for not playing tough, particularly after the Nebraska game. Yeah. No juice. I didn't get that feel from the players yesterday. I felt like they played their guts out.
For one, it's 100% the latter. That they were just trying to buck this label that they were a soft program and that they were going to go win this game, come hell or high water, running the football and controlling the line of scrimmage. I refuse to believe it's anything else than that, because then now you have to bring these guys' intelligence into the question, because there's no way that they looked at that and said, like, they come back, they talk about this this plan to win, and there's no way they looked at everything and said our plan to win is to just run the football, right at the teeth of those two really good defensive tackles and take our chances. There's no way that was a plan to win. That had to be a message trying to be sent, and then to a fault, obviously, as they continue to stick with it, because like you said, the whole idea, the team that runs the ball better or wins the rushing yard battle wins the football game. Yeah, that's probably true, because every one of those teams was the better, more physical offense. So, and that tends to happen. And also that's another thing too, because, again, while I refuse to believe that like they had anything other to do than just like, just stubbornness and wanting to win this game at the line of scrimmage, like that offensive line, I said this after the Indiana game, for what they did well, it was still concerning that Ohio State couldn't run the football. And there's still a lot remained to be seen with how Ohio State would handle this reshuffling of the offensive line in terms of the run game. We found out yesterday that like there are still major issues with Ohio State's offensive line. Ryan Day alluded to it, and he's not wrong. Ohio State has big issues trying to run the football. For anybody who's not, who's talented along the defensive line, and also says like, hey, we're not going to let you win this game on the ground, Ohio State's going to struggle to do that. So, but that goes back to, hey, fortunately, you have a passing game that you feel like you can throw the ball 40 times if you need to and go win the game, or you should feel like you can do that. So to never pivot to that, and to not say like, well, our main objective here is to win this football game, however that needs to be, especially as the game grew late. You talked about it, at the end of the third quarter, or I guess in the second half, I was kind of frustrated and pissed off because, in my mind, I was like, all anybody's going to talk about nationally about this game is, what Ohio State didn't do, and the fact that it was a close football game and it shouldn't have been, and it's going to be hard to even enjoy beating Michigan because that's
right.
after Jaden Fielding missed that second field goal, it became very apparent to me that, like, you better start thinking about the possibility of this game going, in the unfathomable direction and Ohio State losing this game. And obviously they did. So, yeah, that just crazy malpractice, coaching malpractice from them to try to win the game the way they did. And I truly believe it's just out of pure stubbornness and the idea that they probably did think that they could go do it this year, and that's fine. But after half of football, it became clear they couldn't, and the fact that they never pivoted just to go win the football game in the second half, I don't know how you defend anybody on that staff.
It just seems so childish.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if that really is what the motive behind that was. In the second quarter, Will Howard catches a monster hit, running the ball on a read option. He keeps it. I thought the hit was pretty clean, though we've seen targeting called for much less. I'm not someone who's ever going to bitch about more targeting calls in this game. I don't want more targeting calls in this game. I'd like it to come back the other way, except for the Marv hit against Georgia. That's a different story. That one was a different story. But he gets up, goes to the tent. Devin Brown comes in for one play. My immediate thought is this is set up to be a legendary day for Devin Brown, because I thought Will was down and out. I mean, he was on the ground for a while. He gets up, he's in the tent. They take his helmet. And then the next thing we see on our end, you were in the press box, he's running up and down the sidelines. I talked to somebody who said, somebody close by the situation said Will was arguing with the doctors. Whatever he did, he got himself back cleared to come back into the game. And he spoke in the press conference afterwards, and he was very defensive about it. I mean, it was I had it loaded up. I wanted to play it for everybody, but he seemed salty. I'm going to try just to see if it plays.
Your best right now is like when you guys go tempo, when you rely.
All right, we'll go to the left. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Will, when you came out there in the second quarter, were you evaluated for a concussion? What was the steps there?
I got banged up, and I was good enough to come back. Yep. Yeah. Got banged up, got hit, and it was my head, and it was good enough to come back. So
Over to the right, Jake Trotter, ESPN.
Will, any thoughts on what happened after the game?
Nope.
Rob Aller over to the left, Columbus Dispatch.
Where do you go from here? You guys couldn't run the ball against a pretty stout defense. What happens now?
I just said it. We're going to regroup and go into the playoffs and make a run.
Over to the right, Bill Rabin.
So he said it was his head,
Yeah.
right? He admits it's his head. Did you see anything at the game that would have indicated that maybe he shouldn't have been back in there?
I don't know if it was anything that other people didn't realize. Look, he was down for a while. It was a big hit, and I also agree that it was a totally clean hit. So it was a big hit. They finally get him off the field, take him straight into the tent. We're all watching this. The game's still, progressing. We're kind of watching the 10th, and he comes out without his helmet. And that's obviously a very clear indicator, bad sign, very bad sign. I bet I could probably count on one hand the times I can think of off the top of my head where a guy had his helmet taken away from him and he ever got it back for the game. So I thought for sure that it was done and over with. And then they continued to look at him. He went over towards where the benches are, the offensive benches are. They continued to look at him. There were 3 or 4 people talking with them. And then the next thing I saw was that he was talking with one individual who still had his helmet. And it was kind of funny. He looked like a child because the individual, the trainer, had the helmet in their hands and he kept on reaching for it. And the person had to keep on pulling it away from him like a child, reaching for it. And so he'd reach for it and they'd pull it away like, no. And then I don't know when they gave it to him back, at some point in that, like you said, he was running up the sideline, firing up the crowd. And it was very clear that, in his mind, he was going back in the game. Matter of fact, so he was running up the sideline doing that before what I just mentioned about trying to get his helmet back. So they had not told him when he was doing that he was going back in the game yet. So that was very clearly a show by him. They're like, hey, I'm fine. I'm going back in this game. I'll never know the answer to this. I have my own thoughts. After seeing him when he went back in that game, the second down hit that he took, and then he got up, and it was a stumble, and there was nobody around him. So I heard people, well, maybe he didn't trip over somebody's foot. It was a stumble. He was standing by himself, and he stumbled after that play, as if he was about to fall down. I actually thought, and I thought, I thought
You're saying the play he came back in, he ran right after when he came back in. You're saying when he got up from that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Was it near the goal line? I'm trying to remember the situation.
I can't recall. I do remember that when he came back in, there was a play right after. I had in my notes that he actually ran, and I thought he was trying to send a message that I'm okay, I'm fine.
It was that, or maybe he got hit after some pressure. I can't remember, but I just know it was one of the first couple of plays after he came back in. It was near the north end zone, and when he got up, there was nobody around him, and he stumbled twice, like he stumbled, like as if he was trying to gain his balance. And whether that's pure coincidence, I guess it could be, and we'll never know the answer to that. Obviously, Will Howard's not going to come out ever and say, like, yeah, you know what, I was never supposed to go back in that game, but I talked my way back into it. But I do know watching a guy stumble like that, even if it would happen, what preceded it never happened, and he wasn't down on the ground and very clearly, in concussion protocol, I just said, like, oh man, that doesn't look good. But given everything that had happened, I thought for sure that the concussion spotter would pull him out of the game after seeing that. I was like, he's not right. He's not right. And kudos to him. I respect it. I'm an old school guy. I respect him trying to get back in the game. But he's not right and he can't play. Lo and behold, he never came out of the game again. So, whatever that's worth, I don't know. And again, unfortunately, that's something we're never going to know. But I'm convinced that he was never right again. Now what right is, I don't know, but I don't think that his head was right after that. So
it certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, he didn't look like himself yesterday. We've talked all year about he's not had a bad game all year. He goes into this game, and not that he was playing great before that, he wasn't, but 19 for 33, 175 yards, 2 picks. We've seen a couple of bad picks over the year. The first one he threw looked a lot like the Penn State one, just a very careless pick. The second one, same way. Couple of boneheaded plays and really set them up. And my gosh, man, they put the defense in so many bad positions, and they just answered the call over and over and over again, which is why I get a little irritated when people are saying at the end of the game, the fight happens. You had 60 minutes to fight. You could have fought then. Like, I get that. I normally would say the same thing, but I felt like they played their asses off. They didn't leave anything. They left it all out there. And they, go ahead.
Just 2 things real quick. For one, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't giving any excuses for Will Howard's performance. Like, the dude just absolutely shit the bed. And I'm just, maybe that had something to do with it, but that first pick was just that's just a flat out awful throw. You can't leave that ball in that place and miss that on the inside. So I'm not making excuses for Will Howard's performance. It was just flat out not good enough in that game. And frankly, to be honest with you, the approach that he took following the game in the press conference was, kind of pissed me off a little bit because, he's gotten so much credit this year, and rightfully so, for being the guy that he is and being great with the media and being willing to be forthcoming and whatnot. And to take that approach after this game because you didn't play well and you don't want to be there, I thought was frankly kind of bush league. So, but I'm not surprised by it, but I thought it was kind of bullshit. But go ahead.
I just real quick on that. I wasn't sure what he was trying to portray there. I wasn't sure if he was irritated or if he was trying to say, like, head down, we're going to go get it done. I thought maybe there was something behind it other than him just being really, really bitchy, because that's the way he sounded.
I took it. I mean, he just
okay. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was going for something else because he's been so savvy with the media.
Right. And that's why it was kind of jarring a little bit that he was like this. I understand, look, Cody Simon was up there basically fighting back tears every time he was asked a question.
He did cry. Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt for the guy, but he answered the questions truthfully the best he could, and I know he didn't want to be there. I promise you, he didn't want to be there. Nobody wanted to be up there, talking to us. And some, look, sometimes these questions that are asked in these press conferences are redundant as well. So that probably, would piss people off as well. And I get that. But at the end of the day, that's exactly how I took it out of Will Howard. I just thought it was, kind of, I know you don't want to be here, answer your 5 questions and get the hell out of here, but don't, 1-word answers. And I just said it. And, because I asked about the injury, I had the first question to him and I was the first one to ask about the injury. And all he said was I was good enough to come back. And I wasn't expecting him to tell me exactly everything that was said between him and the concussion protocol people, the trainers. I'm not, but, a little more insight into just, how he felt coming out of that would have been nice, So it's just, yeah, I was not impressed.
I got a question about that. So him and Cody both come out.
Yeah.
Is that optional for them, or do they say, guys, we need to do they tell them to go do that?
Well, we've gotten no. So that's, I don't know how that, if they ask them or, if I imagine, without naming any names, I imagine there's some people on the beat who probably request certain players, and that's generally filled. That request is generally filled. But Will Howard's been a mainstay every year. Every year we always get the quarterback after the games. That's just you just know that's going to happen. Oh, by the way, speaking of quarterbacks and how they acted, go back and listen to CJ Stroud's post-game press conference after the 2022 Michigan game and see how he handled that compared to the way Will Howard handled his today. And it just goes to show you what I mean about, what Will gave us and how much, it was kind of chicken shit. But as far as Cody Simon goes, everybody else, aside from the quarterback, you don't really know who you're going to get on a given day. You have an idea based off of who had a really big game. If Jeremiah Smith goes and has 2 touchdowns, we're probably going to get him. If Quinshawn ran for 125 yards, we're probably going to get him. And again, there are certain people who will make sure that we get whoever they want to get. So, but I don't know how they picked Cody Simon today, and we only got 2 players. There's only 2 players we got, which frankly, in and of itself, is also bullshit. I understand that these guys are hurting. I understand that these guys, the last thing they want to do in the world is go speak to the media about, coming up short and frankly failing again for the 4th time in this game. I understand that. But, as we move further and further into this age of players getting paid and compensated for their talents and their production on the field, I'm going to have less and less of an appetite for trying to protect these guys from the media and protect these guys from having to do things they don't want to do, because that's bullshit. As we move, more to basically a semi-pro model for the NFL, which is what this is becoming. And so, but I know we're still moving forward, but
it's an excellent point. I mean, I have a draw come out every month. It goes to paying their salaries. A lot of people watching have the same thing. They're grown-ups, they're adults. It's probably time to stop calling them kids unless they're recruits.
Yeah.
At this point, these are dudes making a healthy amount of money now, and they can come up and answer questions. Nobody's yelling at them. But no, I think I'm with you. Go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing just reminded me, the yelling at him though. Walking to the press conference, it was very ugly for those players as they're walking up the ramp to the locker room. You're right, we weren't yelling at them in the media room, but the Ohio State fans that had gathered at the fences outside the locker room, not good. There was some nasty stuff being said at those guys, and it's the unfortunate side of playing for Ohio State. We've talked about it ad nauseum. It's also bullshit, but also not surprising at all. Yeah, I mean they were getting it worse outside than they were having to come up and face us and answer some questions. So anyways,
that's interesting. I mean, to be honest, I get it, man. I get it. But I really felt like that game yesterday was so much squarely on their coaching staff.
Yeah.
And they played so damn hard. I do want to address this super hat chat from my man, Mike Green, who said, well, y'all wore those run the damn ball hats. And I think he's joking. It's true. We did. But I just want to say, number one, my wife said I look handsome in the hat. All right. So number 2, these were for Seth McLaughlin raising money for the Mid-Ohio Food Bank, which is why I bought the hat in the first place. So while it is nice to run the ball, if I was advising the team, I just said, well, they got 2 first-rounders. Where are they, Dylan? Well, they're right there in the middle. Let's not do that. That's the only way that they can stop us. Okay, fair enough, Dylan. Let's go. That's what I would have said. Anyway, special teams. Every year against this team, we screw it on special teams. We did it again. 2 missed field goals. We had a punt. The kid, what the hell is the kid's name? The Paisan. He kicked a 31-yard punt.
McGuire.
We had was it? McGuire.
Yeah.
31-yard punt, and then we had Trey mishandling a kickoff, gets it down inside the 5, pins him back deep. Every single year in this game, special teams killed us. They got a transfer kicker. This kid strokes 50-yarders like they're extra points.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it. I can't believe it after all the emphasis from Day on specials, him taking over. Once again, we come out of this game with embarrassing special teams plays that could have very well cost the game. If those two, a 34 and a 38-yarder go in, we're looking at a different score. Of course, you never know how things play out, but special teams, once again, in this game, it's just so beyond unacceptable. It makes me want to choke somebody.
Yeah, I mean, losing any game, this particular game, a Michigan game, basically, because of special teams, or largely because of special teams, would be unacceptable. The fact that it's a persistent theme in this game is it's wild. It's absolutely wild. But then again, it's on brand for the Ryan Day's program and how it's handled this stage for 4 years now. That anything that could go wrong would go wrong, and it's always something. Look, those 2 field goals change a hell of a lot about that football game. Not just because it's 6 points and they lost by 3, so that's a win. Like as you said, I hate when people do that because you just never know how the game goes after certain moments like that.
Yeah.
So but at the end of the day, it's 6 points you left on the board, and obviously you throw that in with the 2 turnovers that took points off the board and then gave them points, and it's just basically it comes down to those 4 plays. As we could talk about a lot of things, the game plan and all that stuff. But, those 4 things, 2 picks and 2 missed field goals are, not just cost Ohio State the game, it probably cost them a 14-point win, or 10 or 14-point win, at least, disappointing, but a comfortable win. So, but I don't know what the answer to special teams is. Like, there's no scapegoat anymore. Obviously, we knew people like to pile on, Ryan for hiring a special teams coach. Can't do that anymore. They've all taken responsibility for it. So I guess that's just a collective effort. The Travion kickoff thing, I'm not sure in what situation ever like letting that ball bounce like that would be advisable or like an option. And I have no idea what happened there. So it's bad.
The 2-minute drill right before the half, Buckeyes passed the ball, I think 8 out of the 9 plays. No huddle. Bang, 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 bang. I think there was 4 straight completions. Tate, JJ, Mecca. It looked great. And Day was asked, you get another PI on that one. That ended up in a touchdown to JJ. And it just felt like, okay, they found the recipe. They've been such a great second half team all year, right? They've made a lot of times that's been on defense, though. They've not played great defense in the first, made adjustments, lights out in the second half. This time, not so good on offense. I'm figuring, all right, here's the recipe. They're going to come out. They're going to pick up the pace. They never went back to tempo, ever. Day was asked about it after the game. I'll try to play his answer here. We'll see if it plays.
11 Warriors.
Ryan, but one drive you guys had success on was really the end of the first half. You guys are going tempo, no huddle. Did you think about going back to that more in the second half? And do you wish maybe you'd gone back to that more in the second half?
I mean, we tried to change up the huddle. I mean, the tempo a little bit on some things, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. That drive, it worked, and it was in the 2-minute drive, and I thought it was well executed. But that was just 100% throw on that that drive there. I think maybe there was a run or two, but you got to stay on. You got to get first downs when you're doing that. If you don't get first downs, then it's hard to continue to play with tempo. So
I don't know what kind of bullshit answer that is. They didn't go back to tempo. What do you mean if you don't get first down? They never went back to it. I don't know what he's talking about. Did you see them go back to tempo? They didn't. Look, I haven't rewatched the game.
Yeah,
but I don't recall them going back to tempo.
They did at one point, and then lo and behold, a terrible back-to-back bad snaps by Carson Hinsman.
That was okay.
That was
The one snap, Dylan, he snapped the ball as though Will's hands were as if he was under center.
And
then it was just laying there on the ground. I couldn't believe it. Look, I played center before. That's a very invasive feeling.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, no, yeah.
When they're under center. I couldn't believe he did that. But again, that's just another, this is a mishmash offensive line. It's just another highlight to that. Like, these guys are out of spots. Tegra Shabola, he looked like he got eaten. He got eaten on Saturday. And it just highlights how dumb it was to continue to call that game the way it was called.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you know, you got a lot of people blaming Chip yesterday on the show and the post-game show, putting it all on Chip for this. Man, these guys come up with this game plan together all week. This Chip and Ryan do this together. If Ryan Day wants Chip to pivot off of something that's not working, he tells him to pivot off of something that's not working. This is all on the head coach to me. Like that's just what it is for me.
You know, following the Caleb Downs pick, you know,
Beautiful pick, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
looked like it was going to be a really big, you know, it's kind of one of those, all right, now they go kind of moments.
ball inside the 25.
25, late in the third quarter.
Yeah.
The third and 10 call to hand the ball off to Trevion Henderson, and maybe it was a draw play if I recall, but hand the ball off to Trey. At that moment in time, it became increasingly clear to me that either somebody has kidnapped Chip Kelly and an imposter sitting up there in his seat, or they don't trust Will Howard for some reason. Because there is no way that you could justify running the football in that situation and not trying to get that first down unless they just don't believe that it's smart to let Will Howard put the ball in the air. And if that's the case, then you ask yourself, well, why? Was it because he's made, you know, a couple of mistakes? Well, you know, he's made some big mistakes in other games and didn't shy away from that.
Bounced right back from him. Very well.
So why would they not trust him now in this particular situation? It's such a crucial moment. And obviously on third and 10, given the way you've been running the ball all day too, that it was very clearly a white flag, like take the field goal. By the way, with the kicker who'd already missed a kick as well. So you also have that in the back of your head, like, hey, we're playing with fire, selling for any field goals here, yet they still decided to hand the ball out there. And then again, it just makes me wonder what was going on. What did they think of Will Howard in that moment, and why did they think that? I'm never going to get the answers to that, but it just makes me wonder because that was such a just an insane call, like almost just like jaws dropped in the press box. Like they ran the football there, they handed the ball out there. So it's just
that series, Dylan, was run for 0 yards, pass to G. Scott completed for 0 yards. And then that third one you're talking about for 0 yards. They get an interception inside the 25, don't get a yard, then miss a field goal.
Miss a field goal.
It was unbelievable.
That was
unbelievable.
That was almost like a spirit breaker there. Like, you know, and then that was what I was referring to earlier in the show when I said like that at that moment, it became, you know, my mindset shifted to, you know, forget about how they win this football game. This is setting up to be just an absolute heartbreaker I don't want to say heartbreaker, you know, just again, a spirit breaker of a loss here. This is what this is setting up to be. So,
Inside the 25, the 20, whatever, it's been their bread and butter all year. The red zone touchdown conversion percentage has been the best in the country.
Yeah. And
the way they played that yesterday was just pretty humiliating. Another defensive play as Michigan takes it down inside 8 minutes, or is it 8 minute drive, and Davis Warren doesn't see Jack Sawyer. He drops into coverage, and a pick comes right to him. Buckeyes have the ball back now with 7 minutes left. The game was tied at 10. And at that moment, you feel like, all right, you got him where you want him. And again, 3 and out. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm just wrestling with this damn game over and over again. I felt like there were so many opportunities that they just gave away. The defense gave them so many great opportunities. That one, I don't know if yes, Jack, I'm happy for Jack, but that was a horrible pass. A little bit of loft. He was wide open for a touchdown.
Wide open.
Yeah.
You put any air on it whatsoever, and he's going to catch it 10 times out of 10. But
defense, they finally break on that last possession. Khalil Mullings, like 6 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, then boom, 27 yards. And then we see, to rub a little salt in the wound, Jordan Marshall come in there.
Yeah.
Ohio's Mr. Football last year, and he gets just a little 3 yards, but it just reminded me, and I hadn't even talked about it coming into the game, Tony Alfrod, he posted his picture last night, smoking a cigar, saying "Go Blue," and Jordan Marshall at the end of the game. And then I saw this picture today. I don't know if you've seen this one, Dylan. I'm going to pull this picture up that was floating around of these little twits. I don't know if those are. It looked like a couple of walk-ons.
Especially
up the OHIO on our field.
Yeah, away from all the Ohio State players, of course, with a massive humanity in front of them. You know, so they weren't scrapping. I promise you that. So
yeah, right. What is your opinion on that fight? I mean, I've seen some comments in here from some of the folks
I was hoping.
They, I saw somebody say that they, it's okay that days 10-2, that's not fireable, but the fight is fireable. Like my opinion is, they did that in 22, and I was absolutely furious that they were allowed to do that. It's disrespectful as hell. It caused a brawl yesterday in the Florida State game. Anybody saying that's not disrespectful, like I don't know, like if you're just full of shit or if you're not a man. I don't know. Like, yes, that is disrespectful as hell.
Look, if Ohio State players, you kind of referred to this earlier, if Ohio State players went down, towards Michigan after Carmen, Ohio, looking for a fight, Michigan's down there celebrating with their band in the north end zone, their fans down there in the north end zone, and if Ohio State approached them and it set off a melee, some kind of brawl, I would be just disgusted with it.
Me too.
Without a doubt. Given knowing what happened 2 years ago, obviously both sidelines were very aware, of that situation 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one thing you're trying to do by planting that flag now is to start a fight or to spark some kind of emotion from Ohio State. It's the only thing you're trying to do. So to suggest that Ohio State was was wrong to answer that call, I don't know. I would ask you, what you would do in a similar situation if somebody was calling out your manhood essentially, and you were supposed to just take it. So I have no problem with it whatsoever, none whatsoever. For the people who say like, well, you should have fought harder on the field than you did after the game. Well, yeah, Jack Sawyer played his ass off, ladies and gentlemen. So tell Jack Sawyer that he didn't play hard. And then after the game, he's supposed to just take that. So I have the utmost respect for Jack. Like, I don't know what's going to happen coming out of this. This is the unfortunate part of it. I understand this. I don't know what happens coming out of this if guys miss games moving forward. If you have very important pieces missing for playoff games, I don't know. So that would suck.
Gosh, Dylan, I hadn't even considered potential ramifications. Have you ever recalled pepper spray being dispersed at a on-field fight?
Not an on-field fight. Funny thing is, you asked me my first memories of the Michigan game earlier this week, and I mentioned that my first one was the '94 win for Cooper, and people rushing the field, and they were spraying pepper spray to get the people off the field, and that was my first. I didn't know what pepper spray was at 5 years old, and it got in my eyes a little bit, and my dad, kind of quickly got us off the field or towards back of the other side of the field. So it was funny, just not funny, but here seeing pepper spray being used on the the Ohio Stadium field after the Michigan game, brought back some memories, but never for that reason, never for a fight on the field. And I've certainly never heard it in other fights on the field either. So that was wild. That was a wild scene, the way it was handled after the fact. But, look, at the end of the day, like I said, Michigan was trying to punk Ohio State again. They knew exactly what was going to happen, or at least they had an idea what could happen. And they wanted to spark that reaction out of Ohio State. Some Ohio State players answered the call, and and I agree with Rick there with that comment. Look, at the end of the day, something needs to be done about flag plantings. Like, that needs to be a seriously punishable offense to some degree, because that's what's going to set off these fights. And if you expect that a home team, 2 years after this already happened to them, and look, emotions are already high. You can say what you want to, whether you agree with the fight or not. That the scene is ripe for a fight, given the emotions of this game and knowing what happened 2 years ago. So, whether you agree with the fight or not, the scene and the situation is ripe for a fight. Something needs to be done about that if you want these things to stop. But look, I'm rambling, but at the end of the day, I have no problem with the Ohio State players going over there and meeting that challenge, because that's exactly the reaction that Michigan wanted to spark. And I promise you, so many people, if they didn't react at all, if Michigan went and did that again, especially with those players still on the field, and Ohio State play, there's photos and videos of Ohio State players sitting there watching it happen, they would absolutely be crucified by people as, being soft and other more explicit words, for A, letting that happen again, and B, not doing anything.
I'd be one of them.
Yeah, a lot of people who have a problem with the fight would be one of them too. Now that it happened, now they want to take this, this moral high ground and world, but they'd be the same damn people who would have an issue with it as well. And like you, in my opinion, rightfully so. So I don't want to hear from a lot of these people. Look, it was ugly.
Nah, man, I got no time for that. No time for that at all.
It was a bad look, but
when we talk about these kind of rules and how they get implemented. So I was talking to my buddy Cody, who's a Juck guy, and he said that I said about that Penn State call when they got called for unsportsmanlike conduct when the guy stepped over Carnell when he was getting up. And I was kind of talking about that, like that was a weak call. I think you said the same thing. And he got a hold of me after the show, and he gave me the kind of how that rule got developed. Is he said that the guys were doing that on purpose and like dragging their stuff across dudes' helmets, and that's how that got implemented. Which I had never heard that, and it was causing a lot of fights. So certainly you can understand. Okay, when something causes a fight and it happens repeatedly, then you make that part of the rules. The flag planting. We just saw 2 fights yesterday over it in 2 different games across the country. It's certainly something that is going to provoke a lot of emotion. And I'd have been right there with them scrapping. So that's just how I'm rolling. But at any rate, this loss for Ryan Day, obviously the worst loss of his career. On Ohio State coach can't have a worse loss than a loss in this game. 4 in a row. As a 23-point favorite at home. Like you add it all up. You can't possibly have a worse loss than this. Where do you go? What do you think? We talked about his program before. I think you said before the game that actually this is what you said before the game.
For everything you asked me what, if this one feels different or how it stacks up to how recent years have felt. When you consider all those guys who came back for this moment, everything they just said on Tuesday to us about, why they came back and what it would mean. And then you talk about Ryan Day and obviously, that being a potentially 4th loss in a row to a Michigan team and certainly a 6-win Michigan team. You want to talk about fraudulent. It would be this program would be the most fraudulent thing you've ever seen, or this team, I should say. And by extension, Ryan Day's program, the most fraudulent thing you've ever seen if they were to lose this football game. Like you say, I don't know how you come back from it. There better not be any coming back from it. I mean, you burn that thing to the.
All right. Now, we didn't think that was going to happen at the time when we were having that conversation. To me, it was not even a possibility. And I said all week, like I'm trying to get my nerves up for this because it has all the markers of an upset. It has all the classic markers. But I just can't see any way a scenario in how it happens. Well, we've now seen it. That's what you said before the game. How are you feeling now on Sunday? I made it a point yesterday in the post-game show to make sure I gave myself a day before I came out with any hardcore, because I've had people throw this shit back in my face after I come out and say something. And the next day I'm like, all right, look, I was just a little mad. I'm calmed down a little bit. So I want to make sure I was measured with my words yesterday. But how are you feeling today, buddy?
Well, nothing I said there on that show on Wednesday was, just me being, a little, overreactive to the idea of Ohio State losing that game. Everything I said there, I believe today. I absolutely believe today. Look, there are a lot of things to unpack here with this loss. What a change in the regime would mean, and there I see a lot of people talking about what it would mean for players transferring and the recruiting classes and whatnot. Look, at the end of the day, no matter whenever you make a coaching change, unless you think that Ryan Day is going to coach Ohio State for the next 30 years, whenever you make that change, he could go win 4 national championships in the next 20 years and retire. When he retires, you're going to be looking at a recruiting class that was probably really good because it's Ohio State that might fall apart, or it might be hard to keep a lot of those guys because Ryan Day is retiring. And anytime you have coaching turnover, that happens. So one of these days, you're going to have to address that. It's just going to be part of it comes with the territory of making a coaching change. So I don't want to hear that. Yeah, it would really suck if, Caleb Downs or Jeremiah Smith transferred and you lost some of these guys in this recruiting class. But that's not an excuse to keep banging your head against the wall with Ryan Day leading this program. And then there's the whole other question about, people will say, well, who do you want to go get? It's a fair question in the sense that, it should spark conversation about what options are out there. And it does drive me crazy anytime somebody has said through the years, leading up to this, they go, hey, buy Ryan Day. And you say, okay, who would you like to go get? And they have no idea, they don't even have the first idea, who they would want to see coach Ohio State or who Ohio State should reach out to. That drives me crazy. But there are people out there that certainly, would be interesting to talk about. And at the end of the day, it's Ohio State. So within reason, for the most part, you can go out and get whoever you want to. You can go out and get whoever you want to. With the exception of maybe 3 or 4 names, you can probably go out and get whoever you want to. So the idea that there's nobody out there that can lead Ohio State to 10, 11 win seasons and get beat by Michigan every year, is insane. So don't tell me that there are no better options out there. Look, at the end of the day, Ryan Day got a lot of credit through the years because he get beat by Michigan. He had a Michigan problem, but he wouldn't lose games he wasn't supposed to. Urban Meyer had a problem with losing games that, like just out of nowhere upsets, the Purdue upset, the Iowa upset. Like, where the hell did this come from? But that was never Ryan Day. Ryan Day had a Michigan problem, but he didn't lose games otherwise, outside of that. Then he just did both of those things in the same damn afternoon. He got beat by a team that had no business beating Ohio State, and also lost his 4th straight game to Michigan in the process of doing that. So it's an unforgivable loss, and one unforgivable loss is one thing, but when it comes on the heels of what we know 3 years prior, what's happened 3 years prior, I don't know how Ross Bjork gives a vote of confidence to the Ohio State fan base and everybody associated with Ohio State football if you run this back again. I understand that they can go win a national championship. I also understand if they win a national championship, that would probably create the most awkward situation you've ever seen for a football coach at a place like Ohio State, because you can't fire the guy after winning a national championship, and you also still are no closer to figuring out how you kind of assert your dominance in the rivalry again. In this game that we're told year after year, day after day throughout those years that it means more than anything else, and it's the only thing that matters at Ohio State. You're going to keep this guy around. If he wins a national championship, I understand that. It would be weird. If he doesn't win a national championship, then what are you doing here? Like, I might just absolutely lose my cool in the days, weeks, months to come if Ryan Day is continuing to be this head coach at Ohio State and I have to listen to him talk about everything they do, to beat Michigan, at every turn, talking about what they have to do to beat Michigan, because they've been doing it for 4 years. And it's not, look, I saw a lot of people compare Ryan Day to John Cooper yesterday. And
you talked to John Cooper yesterday, didn't you?
So I made a joke on Twitter. It's kind of a joke, but I've seen a lot of people, and I did. We'll get to that. But I saw a lot of people in the comparisons were obvious how the comparisons were there last year after he lost the 3rd straight game to Cooper, or to Michigan, that, hey, here's the next Cooper. It's John Cooper 2.0, all these things. I genuinely believe that those comparisons are unfair to Ryan Day, because we know that John Cooper never understood the rivalry. He just never got it, was never going to. I genuinely believe that Ryan Day understands the importance of this rivalry. I truly believe that he pours, all the time and the effort that you need to into this rivalry to win this game. I don't think that's a problem at all. I just think that Ryan Day is a mental midget when it comes to winning this game. And by association, that filters on down through his program. But I don't think it has anything to do with Ryan Day not understanding the rivalry or not putting the right kind of effort into winning this game. I don't think it has anything to do with it at all. But at the end of the day, a loss is a loss is a loss is a loss 4 years in a row. I don't really care why it's happening. We clearly know that Ryan Day doesn't know why it's happening. Although we can probably point the finger right back at him and say, like, hey, buddy, look inward if you want to figure out why this is happening. But at the end of the day, 4 times in a row, I don't know how you give, not the fan base, but kind of the fan base. I mean, that's who you do it for. But the players, the players internally, I imagine there's some interesting feelings inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center about their head coach and the direction of the program and their ability to go win this game. And I just don't know how you tell those guys that, hey, there are better days ahead, given the sample size you have with Ryan Day. And then again, the cherry on the top, and probably not a cherry, it's probably something else. But the topper of all this is that it was a terrible Michigan team. You'll never see, offensive or defensively, you'll never see a single worse unit in this game than what Michigan's offense was in this game, and you couldn't beat it. You couldn't find a way to win that game. You're a 21-point favorite and couldn't find a way to win this game. If this isn't the lowest of lows, I don't know what it is. And running it back out there, Ohio State deserves everything they get, to be honest with you. If they run it back again and they go on to lose in Ann Arbor next year or whatever the case may be, they deserve everything they get or don't get if they run it back. So just so we're clear, you are for a change in regime here, Dillon. Yeah. If I wasn't explicitly clear there, make no mistake about it that I don't know how Ryan Day still has a job come January, assuming they don't win a national championship. And anybody who disagrees with that, that's fine. That's fine. but the answers to a lot of these questions people are going to use to disagree with it are very easy to answer or naturally kind of dismissed.
So here's the thing, and to your point, nobody is saying to that, we want, Ryan Day, we need a change in regime. Ryan Day should be gone. Like, nobody is saying anymore. They're not giving his record anymore. They're not saying we need to keep him based on his merit. They're saying we need to keep him based on fear of losing players, of not getting the right coach. And when the argument switches from defending the coach to fear of change to the new coach and fear of the consequences of that, that's when you have lost the fan base. You've lost the fan base here. I don't think that there is any coming back at this point. And this playoffs, it is very strange because we are talking about a team in this Buckeye team whose best can beat anybody else's best this year still. And you have the potential still to make a run. I don't know how they come back from this. They talked all year about this. This was goal number one for these players, these guys that came back. It was everything. And the way they lost, not just to another Michigan team, but to a very average Michigan team. They're just an average team at home. And like you said, with the fans popping off to them as they're coming off the field, like, I don't know how you regroup and go and they're gonna have a home playoff game, Dylan.
Yeah.
Even like, what does that look like? I know I've talked to a lot of fans in the last 24 hours, and I think a lot of people's feelings will change. But a lot of people are like, I want them to get bounced quick out of the playoffs, so nobody has any excuse to keep him around.
When
you see the Buckeyes out there on the field in the playoffs, so there's no way anybody's going to be able to stick to that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I understand what people are saying. That's probably a reactionary, prisoner of the moment take. I would hope that people aren't going to be rooting against the Buckeyes in a playoff game, because I wholeheartedly disagree with that. But and I know it's not the same thing. But then again, I've rooted for my teams, and when the season's clearly lost, to just improve draft stock, and I don't care. I don't care about these meaningless wins, at the sake of hurting your draft stock. So, but the season's not meaningless. Like, again, whether you think they can or can't, they're going to have the opportunity to go play for a national championship, and frankly, probably be favored against all but maybe three teams in those games. People are still going to really like their national championship hopes, and rightfully so. Now, I go back to the offensive line and what I saw in that game, what I saw going back to the Indiana game, and saying anybody who doesn't just challenge Ohio State and say you won't run the football against us because you can't, and you better hope Will Howard doesn't make mistakes. That would be coaching malpractice on their part. And if that happens, I don't know if Ohio State wins a whole lot of those games against some of these teams. But bottom line is they're going to have the chance. So and I want to say real quick, we've talked about this before. I've mentioned this. I've been labeled a Ryan Day apologist for 3 years now. I've been defending the guy left and right for 3 years now, dating back to last year. When people were already calling for his head. I genuinely believe that Ryan Day was, a really good thing for the Ohio State football program, and he had things he had to get figured out. But that I still believe that he would ultimately, when those guys came back, all those players came back this year. It set the tone for everything that happened, leading up to this Michigan game. And oh, by the way, you got a gift because that Michigan team turns out they sucked, and you got a gift. All you had to do was just go do what you do against 6-win football teams and beat them by 21 points. Well, to win the game, but go beat them handedly, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people are. I don't want to say a lot of people are changing their tune, but there's a lot of ammo for people to say, like, look, they were patient with them, and it's starting to pay off here. You failed again. You failed. You didn't just fail to beat Michigan, but now you failed 4 years in a row on all three of your directives. Every year, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship. In one just miserable afternoon against a terrible Michigan team, you've already screwed two of those for the fourth year in a row, and you put yourself in a bad position, in terms of trying to make the third one happen. And oh, by the way, the third one's the hardest part of it all, anyways. So you're staring at being 0 for 3 for 4 years in a row on all your directives, and In what world, I don't understand in what world at a place like the Ohio State University, if you have 3 goals, very, very clearly defined goals year after year, 3 goals, and you fail on them 4 years in a row, in what world at a place like Ohio State, or name like maybe a handful of programs, would that fly? Would that be okay? Would that happen at Alabama? No, absolutely would not have. Hell, they're talking about wanting Kalen DeBoer out of there already now for a really tough first season, tough by Alabama standards. And I think that's probably a little silly as well, but I also understand the culture down in Alabama, what they expect and what they've gotten this year, and it wasn't acceptable. Imagine he'd have lost that Auburn game yesterday. Imagine he'd have lost that Iron Bowl. And how do you think that athletic department would have reacted? Or I'm not saying they would have fired him, but what do you think those internal conversations would have been like? After year 1, this is year 4 of this. To think that this is that you keep on running this back is just asinine to me, just absolutely crazy. So sorry, going on a rant.
I do want to point this out, since you brought up Kalen DeBoer, to the people who think that you're going to lose all the talent. Kalen DeBoer goes into Alabama after Nick Saban retires, and they lost several players. We got Caleb Downs, we got Julian Sayin, 2 great players, Seth McLaughlin, a great player. They lost a bunch of players to Florida State. And Kalen DeBoer entered this season, Alabama having the #1 talent composite in the country still. So whoever comes into Ohio State, if it's the right hire, will be able to not just salvage, but do a very good job keeping a lot of talent in place if they have the same chops and resources that Kalen DeBoer had at Alabama, which I think we all believe that they will. In addition, in his very first recruiting class, another top 3 class. So there's not going to be some massive talent drop off. We may lose some of our favorite players. That may happen.
Yeah.
But we're still going to be a team talented enough. And if you look at Alabama, they've lost 3 games this year, not because of talent. They've shit the bed in a couple of games, but their best still looks like it can beat anybody's best too. When they're clicking on all cylinders. So
that's a great point.
That's not a reason to be fearful.
That's a great point. And, and this wasn't lost on me when I see people say like, well, yeah, if Brian Day gets fired, a guy like Jeremiah Smith, he's gone, he'll hit the transfer portal. Oh, darn. Well, let's make sure that doesn't happen so he can get his 2 targets in the second half of the year and be a non-factor. Like, listen to the idiocy of just absolute more. It's such a moron take to say that, to say like, well, JJ might leave. Yeah, I love Jeremiah Smith. It is a pleasure to watch him play. He's the best receiver in football today as a true freshman. Awesome. If he leaves, nothing changes about Ohio State's future, because if you're going to misuse him like that or just completely forget that he exists in games of that magnitude or in situations like that, then who gives a shit anyways?
I've said it all year, dude. This kid is the best offensive weapon in college football, and failing to use him to take advantage of what he can give you, like they did in the first half, get 2 PIs that set you up for easy scoring opportunities. And when he doesn't get a PI, he catches the ball. Like, good things happen when you throw it to 4, when you involve this guy, keep involving him. And then they got to pull guys to him. And you got other guys who can now take over. Like, it blows my mind. It really does. And I feel like any other coaching staff in the country would be giving this kid 12 targets a game. I feel like every single good coaching staff in the country would be. He's gotten 12 targets, I think, 0 times this year. I think he had 11 once. Might have hit 12 one time. But usually it's right around 6, 7 targets. And I think that's just total malpractice for a guy like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is. And I mean, that's still saying nothing of Emeka Egbuka, who's really good and who's going to have a nice career,
right.
We believe, on Sundays. And probably be a top. It's going to be a top 2 round draft pick, maybe slides in the first round. I don't know what those projections look like, but going to have a really good shot at having a great career in the NFL. And that's saying nothing of him and the lack of targets he gets. It's just again, it's malpractice in every sense of the word. So I don't want to hear about these guys might go, because you make a hire, because the way they lost that game yesterday, it doesn't really matter anyways. It doesn't change anything about the outlook for Ohio State. So as a matter of fact,
now you've been, obviously you can see what I'm seeing, which is like, even the day defenders are kind of jumping ship now. Mm-hmm. It feels to me like he has lost a large chunk of the fan base with this one. I talked to a lot of people, and guys, I'm going to bring up some of those comments. We got some comments from yesterday that I want to go over, some thoughtful ones, and read over with you guys after Dylan pops off, and we'll get to that. But I just feel like he's lost a large chunk of the fan base. I don't think there's any coming back from this with the fan base unless he were to cash in this year, which feels like such a long shot with this team mentally at this point. But what's it going to be like for you? Like, you've covered him since his very first year. That was your first year on the beat. So obviously this is your first time going through a period where it feels like maybe the Ohio State coach is going to get fired. This is going to be really awkward and really strange. Have you thought about what this is going to be like moving forward in these press conferences? But first, I want to play your question to him yesterday at the press conference. And Dylan, I got to say, you couldn't hold back the tinge in your voice of "I'm so mad," right? Like, listen to this, guys.
To the right, Dillon Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan, you talk a lot about everything always coming back to what you guys do, not about who you're playing, what you guys do. 4 straight years now, what you guys done hasn't been enough in this game. Where do you even go, and how do you pick up the pieces and trying to go forward, in particular with this game in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just fresh off the game right now, and obviously extremely disappointed and angry that we didn't execute well enough. So I'm not there right now. Just fresh off the game, but as you know, this is not easy to accept, and
I do know.
Obviously have to take the ownership. It's I'm the one ultimately that makes the final decisions on things, and felt like we were in a really good place coming into this game. I felt like we were prepared to play well in this game, and I think you could see maybe some of
his answer was just a bunch of rambling nonsense.
All it ever is rambling nonsense. Nonsense. Emphasis on the nonsense, because he has all these things that he says all the time. That's why I preface that by saying, you talk about it's about us all the time. You say it's about us. Like, well, us isn't good enough. You're not good enough anymore. So, what has to change there? So I'm not surprised by the answer I got. But
yeah. And you said you're going to ask him the same question.
I am because he's not going to pull this out. He said, "I'm not there yet," or "We're not there yet" 5 times in that press conference, because
he did. He kept saying we're not there yet.
So that's fine. Maybe we'll get there on Wednesday during signing day. I don't give a shit about what Tavian St. Clair means to the freaking program's future. Let's talk about Michigan some more. I would hope that the beat would take that general approach as well on Wednesday. I know there's some guys who cover recruiting, and they're going to want to get their ask questions, and there's some certain things to ask about recruiting. I'm not saying that, but if we get the typical 35 minute Ryan Day press conference on Wednesday, there better be a solid 15 minutes of that still addressing this game. Now that he's had a chance to digest it, he's not going to run from some of these questions that he was able just to say we're not there yet because it was so fresh after the game yesterday. So,
as you know, I'm a big recruiting guy. We watch film here of the guys. I cover it extensively. It's a passion of mine. This puts us in a weird position here, because it's like, if something changes, how excited am I to get about these guys? I mean, we know that you're going to lose several of them.
Sure.
Should this change, these guys generally are committing to the position coach and the school, but the relationship with the position coach usually paramount.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering, what is this going to look like? Are there meetings happening with Ross Bjork and power players? Like, do you know what the next step is for them on that end of things?
No, I don't. I don't even. I mean, I don't know what Ross Bjork's thinking. So I don't know what his, where he's even at on this. For all I know, he might just be, fully on board with Ryan Day and still just a firm believer in Ryan Day, and just gung ho, full speed ahead. They'll get it figured out.
Do you expect we'll see a statement from him soon? I mean, obviously he knows the fan base wants to hear where he's at.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get the old, vote of confidence from the athletic director on Ryan Day. I think that a decision will be made, whenever the season comes to an end, or kind of maybe be made before that. If they were going to do something, if they were going to make a move. Look, we know that there are stuff out there about Ryan Day looking to move himself. So maybe this decision gets made for him. But I don't think Ross Bjork's going to give any sort of vote of confidence that, or say anything. Otherwise, they'll make a change, or he'll give that, that statement, after the season, but nothing's going to happen in between now and whenever Ohio State plays again, or how that season ultimately comes to an end.
I think Ryan Day's buyout I read was $37 million. That's a big ass buyout, buddy. That's a big one.
Absolutely. But
you'd rather him leave and take a job somewhere else if that was what you wanted, if you wanted him to go, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And if that's the route that happens, I think it's probably best for all, for both parties. We'll see if that happens, but there's certainly no buyout number. That's a big ass buyout without question. Ross Bjork's no stranger to big ass buyouts.
We know that.
So, so if he wants to pay the damn thing, that shouldn't be a very big deterrent at all at a place like Ohio State, and a decision that Ross Bjork's made before. So, yeah.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you. I hope that now. Do you say the press conference is on Wednesday this week?
Yeah, signing day press conference on Wednesday.
All right, let's talk after that and see how that goes. If anything comes out of that more from the game, and it's not just a bunch of signing day fluff. But yeah, I'll be tuned into that, and we'll talk after that and get together. But I appreciate you joining me. Let me run through these comments and make sure that I didn't miss any that were directed at you up here that we got. Let's go over these super chats together.
Did you know I can't see the chat?
You can't see the chat?
No, I feel bad. People always comment in them and I can't see them. So I've never been able to respond or say hi to anybody, or,
we'll have to go over that later, because when I'm a guest on someone else's StreamYard, I can see the chat.
Yeah.
So I think it's a setting you might have that you've just not seen before. Potentially.
Oh, I'm a moron. Sorry.
You see it now?
I just had to click over on the comments. It was on private chat. And
Dylan, I think you've been on with me like 25 times at this point. You've never noticed that.
Yeah, maybe I should go. Maybe I'm coaching this old rivalry game then, because I've been doing the same thing. Screw it up every time.
So Coach Zach, USMC vet, thank you for your service. And your super chat of $9.99 says, Howard had to be concussed, but this is 100% on Day. Those players played hard, but were again set up for failure by the game plan. Alternate universe, DB pulls a Jones, Haskins, and wins the game. I'm telling you, that's the way I was feeling, Coach Zach. I was feeling like DB is about to come in here, all the crap he's been through, losing 2 quarterback battles, getting injured when he was going to come in from a cord last year, and he's about to save the day. It would have been so awesome for him. I was really getting excited about it. I just was like, this team, he can beat this team, and man, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Any comments on that one?
Yeah. I mean, he's 100%. He's absolutely right about this being 100% on Day, and by extension, just the coaching staff in general. Because Ryan Day said after the game that he felt like the team was prepared, and they looked prepared. I think they were prepared, but it doesn't matter if you're prepared. If you're prepared to lose with a losing game plan and a losing approach, I don't think preparation has been an issue for Ohio State across these 4, this run of 4 games, these 4 losses they've had. But it's it doesn't matter if you're well prepared if the preparation was for a losing game plan. That's absolutely what you saw. I agree about I thought that what a story this would make if Devin Brown comes in here and leads Ohio State to a win here. Certainly that wasn't lost on me with the 2017 reference with Haskins and Barrett. But
yeah.
Anyways, but yeah.
Mike Green, thank you, Mike. Mike says, Juck, you're my guy. Chip ran with it literally, and he's talking about the run the damn ball.
Yeah. I didn't get to share my John Cooper story real quick. So
tell us your John Cooper story.
I want to share this real quick, just because when I say my blood was boiling, certainly already in the moment of the loss, I was already pretty pissed off, but keeping my cool. But we were riding down the elevator from the press box down to A deck, which is where you get out.
You and John Cooper in the elevator?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So me, Coop, and I standing shoulder to shoulder. And that symmetry wasn't lost on me, as I said on Twitter. The fact that I was riding down the elevator with John Cooper to go to a Ryan Day press conference, given everything that was being said about those 2 guys in that very moment, that wasn't lost on me. Even though, as I mentioned, I don't entirely agree with that comparison. But anyways, it's a packed elevator. Obviously, there's a lot of people in there, but there's a Michigan staffer in there. It wasn't an assistant coach, but it was somebody on the staff, because the assistant coaches have already gone down. But it was certainly a Michigan staffer as well. He was in there as well, and we're riding down, and it's I don't know, it's like a 30-second ride. And he looks over, Cooper looks over nonchalantly at that Michigan staffer and just says, heck of a win today. You guys really kicked our asses, just nonchalant as could be. And, and it just underscored, like this guy still doesn't get enough. If anybody's blood should be boiling in this moment, it should be his, given his shortcomings and his failures in that game. And I know he's come to terms with it. It's been a while now, and he's in the later stages of his life. So, but given knowing what people, surely it wasn't lost on him what people were saying about the current head coach of Ohio State. And certainly every reference with another loss to Michigan, and then this guy was just completely fine about it. And it pissed me off because it truly represented the difference between Ryan Day and John Cooper. And I know the comparisons are still going to be natural because of the losses, and that's what it always comes down to. But even today, after that loss, one of the darkest days in Ohio State football history. I went back in my head and thought about it, and in my lifetime, it was one of the, I think I got the 4 or 5, no more than 5 losses that are comparable to that game, to that loss yesterday.
You just gave me a great idea for a show. I'm going to put that together.
I would love to be a part of that and talk about what I think. But anyways, one of the 5, in my opinion, one of the 5 lowest days in Ohio State football history. And this guy just does not give a shit because he's John Cooper, and of course he doesn't. Just another day for him. Tough loss. You lose a football game, you move on. He just never got it, and even still to this day, he doesn't get it. And then I thought about what Ryan Day was going through in that moment. What was going through his head? And I don't feel bad for Ryan Day. Short of threatening his family, I don't feel bad for anything Ryan Day gets or hears. About this, I don't. Again, short of threats. Short of the people who take it too far. But just thinking about, how careless John Cooper was still to this day. And then thinking about what was going through Ryan Day's head right now. Just absolutely swimming with, uncertainty about his future, his family's future, why he can't, I'm sure probably second guessing himself and questioning himself as a man, not as a man, but as a person, as a football coach, about his ability to win this football game if he didn't win this one. And then here's Cooper just, happy win today. You guys kicked our asses. Okay, well, I'm going to go on about my day. Just absolutely.
I mean, as sad as it is, he very well might be happy that somebody else is taking that label off of him. You know what I mean? But
possible.
I don't understand why the dude hangs around the program with that kind of attitude, to be honest with you.
That's what I thought.
And I go back to when I was 22 years old when he got fired. Obviously, from the time I was 16 to 22, people were calling for his head.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it just drug on forever and ever, season after season, because everybody had the same fears that people are saying about Ryan Day. Who you going to get? Recruiting's going to drop off. Like everybody, we got great players, and he did. He brought in great players, lost with great players. Ohio State's always had great players.
They had great seasons. They had great seasons with him.
Great seasons. Yeah, absolutely. But the dude had the same issues with winning the big one, whether the reasons are different or not. The number of times that you lost to your rival and then lost your bowl game, which meant a lot back then, just way too many of those seasons. But this was the last time, Dylan. I was 22 years old the last time we went through this. I'm 45 now, so 23 years ago, the last time that we as Ohio State fans kind of thought, oh my gosh, it might be time to fire our head coach. It's been a long time, not something we've had to deal with, and we've been lucky as a fan base with that. But it certainly feels like at this time, the fan base is out collectively. Rose, thank you so much. Rose says the lack of trick plays and creativity lost this. There certainly was a lack of creativity. You definitely want to see something like that in the big game. It used to be something we used to talk about, every year, that one play or that one thing that would come out, something that they saved just for that game. It was something we talked about annually. I don't feel like we've had that for a couple years.
No, I mean, Michigan does it every year against Ohio State. Look, they had the double pass yesterday that Denzel Burke was completely burnt on, and it drew a pass interference call on that drive. So, I agree. The lack of creativity is certainly glaring. I also say that, like, in a game like this, you don't need any creativity. Just do what you do best. Like, you don't have to change a damn thing about who you are or how you're going to go win a game. Just do what you do best because you're better than them across the board, with the exception of in the interior of that offensive line against their defensive line. You're better than them. So just go do what you can do to go win football games. Now, again, I still would like to see some creativity. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to get crazy with it. Just go be better than them. Just go be. That just goes back to how big of a mental midget Ryan Day and this coaching staff and this team, the whole program is when it comes to this game. Like they just psych themselves out. It's almost like Ryan Day was broken back in 2021, and he scrambles every year to figure out how to fix it, and he just can't figure it out. So,
Mike Green, thanks, Mike. The game has to be planned to use all 4 downs unless it's 4th and 10. Sharon Moore understands the mission while Ryan Day continues to tuck his tail. Fired. And I do want to point out, Moore went for it on 4th down, down inside the 5.
Yeah.
Got stonewalled. I totally agree with this decision coming in as the underdog. Absolutely. Like you go for that. And good things happen as he got the turnover right back. But yes, he definitely outcoached Ryan Day, which is just pathetic to say. Like what a serious indictment that this coach at 6-5 is now 2-0 against you. And it's his first year as the guy who actually was implementing the game plan, running the culture by himself up there. And I thought there was no chance of this happening, but he did. He outcoached Ryan Day.
Yep. Without a doubt. 2 years in a row. So, like as you mentioned, 2 years in a row. So,
Bambino says, who cares about losing players? The 2021 class had the most 5-star recruits in the history of Ohio State, and they never beat Michigan. They've never won a big game. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That class was ridiculous. You lost Quinn Ewers out of it. So, that's one piece missing. But for the most part, they're all there. They're all right there except for Marv. Marv's the only one of that big. He actually wasn't one of the 5-stars.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're all there. And they've been, honestly, most of them have underperformed throughout their career. But, you make a great point. You're only as good as your coaches are going to let you be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's everything right there. To everybody who says that making a change would result in a huge roster turnover. Some, yes, but again, what have you won with that roster anyways? And you hit the nail on the head as well. Like Ohio State's it's not going to be some mass exodus from Ohio State in terms of talent. You will lose some players. You might lose your favorite player, whoever is particular, but it's not going to be a mass exodus. People are still going to want to come to Ohio State. Whoever they hire isn't going to be, a nobody. So, yeah.
You're always going to have the opportunity to be on the biggest stage in college football. And that's a massive draw in an era where rules are coming and Congress is going to be passing the exemption to the NCAA. And that's going to mean that these NIL deals are going to need to go through a clearinghouse. They're going to need to be true NIL deals.
Yeah.
How do you maximize that? You get on the stage, the biggest stage you can, and you get eyeballs on you. And in a city like Columbus with a massive population that loves that program, Ohio State going to be just fine unless they get a total loser in as the head coach. And, that can sabotage everything anyway. So that's what it's going to be. And our guy, Mike Witt, thank you so much. Mike says, lifelong Badger fan here. We'll gladly trade you Fickle for Day, 10-2 and going to the playoffs. Way better than where we're sitting here. And that's true. And it is interesting to note, Dylan, that when we look back at the 10 years of the college football playoff 4-team structure, and everybody talked about, Penn State, how many times Penn State would have made it in. Wisconsin was the team that won the most games and never made the playoffs, more than Penn State. And they were flying pretty damn high. I think a lot of people forget it. Just recently, they were in great shape. They bring in Fickle to bring it back. And in his second year now, they're going to miss a bowl game, 5 wins. I expected better out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the record many a times. Like Fickle's a great Buckeye. I think most people would agree he seems like a really good person and did a great job down in Cincinnati. But he's a fraud when it comes to stepping up to this level and turning Wisconsin into something that I think everybody expects it to be, or even just maintaining what it has been. I think Luke Fickle's proven to be fraudulent in that regard. So I have no thoughts on Fickle in terms of, moving forward. I don't know what the situation in Wisconsin is or how easy it would be to get rid of him and where you even go after that. Now, Wisconsin's a program where you have to ask yourself, where would you go if you fired him? That's the kind of program you have to ask yourself those kind of questions. And I don't know what the answer to that is. So I don't know, what his job security looks like, but I have no faith in Luke Fickell to turn anything around in Madison, and I don't think Wisconsin fans should.
Mr. Jones, thank you, Mr. Jones. No buck nuts, no glory. Facts.
Yeah.
Luke A. Jimmer, thank you for the 5. Luke says, knew it was Cook when they called the draw on the 3rd and 10 in the red zone, which Dillon brought up. Yeah. And they ran at Mason Graham, and he was destroying Tegra Shabola. Yes, he was.
That was the moment that, like I said, it was jaw-dropping in the press box. At least, that was the moment where it became very, glaring, increasingly clear to us that nothing was changing in this game. Like, this is what Ohio State was going to do, win or lose. And that's when it became obvious that, like, losing was very much on the table in this game. Just a stunning moment there for sure.
And Gorky says Ryan Day needs to go coach a non-Power 4 team or an NFL team where coaches mean very little. If firing Day means losing players, that's a player we don't need. I'm kind of with you there, buddy. Kind of with you there.
Yeah. I don't care where he goes or where he needs to go. I don't have any thoughts on that, but
my guy. All right, D. Thank you so much for joining me today on a sound off Sunday. I think it was the biggest show we've ever had. A whole lot of people got to hear your excellent stories from yesterday, and you're always the best, man. We appreciate you coming on and talking us through it, buddy. So we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Certainly to all you guys. Try to go about enjoying your Sundays. I know it's a tough one, but find something to do today. Enjoy yourselves. So, but I appreciate you having me, and we'll talk on Wednesday.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you then.
Thank you.
All right, take care. And that is Dillon Davis from the Delaware Gazette. You can follow him on X at Dillon Davis 56. That's Dillon Davis 56. He is without a doubt the best, most direct guy on the Ohio State beat that asks the questions that we talk about. Like, why would they ask that? They're wasting their time. He gets to the bottom of things, and he asks them in a way that doesn't lead them into a bullshit answer, which so many of them do. He's absolutely the best. So Dillon Davis 56, Dillon. That's our dude, and we appreciate him coming on and joining us usually twice a week, which is fantastic. Schaefer Healthcare, thank you for the super chat. Schaefer Healthcare says Marcus Freeman, Buckeye, understands the rivalry, recruits top 10 at Notre Dame with academic disadvantages. Unless we can get Urban or Vrabel, he'd be my pick. Marcus Freeman is certainly, I don't think, coming to Ohio State, and I don't know if you've kept up on it, bro, but he's, thrown some serious shade at Ohio State more than once. I've done a couple episodes on it, and it's been very disappointing. My opinion on Marcus has changed drastically. Of course, it would change back if he apologized and wanted to come back home. But as of right now, it feels like he's got a serious issue. There's something going on, something that happened behind the scenes, or he harbors some resentment. We'll put it that way. I really believe he harbors some resentment against Ohio State. But when I went through the comments yesterday, there was a couple that I screenshotted, and I wanted to just kind of pull up to go through with you guys, and I'll just kind of run through them here. But CMK Tigers, absolutely no creativity on the offensive play calling. Day didn't coach like his job was even in jeopardy. Hats off to the D. They brought it today. And I do think it's important that we do recognize what an awesome effort those defensive players put out. It was great. They laid it all out there. Watching Cody Simon after the game, tears running down his face, saying, he feels so bad he let Buckeye Nation down. It means something to me. Watching Jack after the game rip that flag, it means something to me. And I'll always remember those guys fondly, even though, they have not accomplished any of the goals we would have wanted them to. Tim says, Juck, you sound like me during the Brady Hoke era. Thought for sure that guy would win more. Maybe, man. I had faith. Look, here's the thing. Yesterday, here's what I do. Like, I come on immediately after the game, and I've noticed, this is my first year doing this, that sometimes immediately after the game in the post-game show, I say things that are maybe not what I feel totally the next day. So I try to measure what I say now so that I don't say something that gets thrown back in my face, because people take screenshots of my stuff and like tweet it out to like, oh, look what you said here. Look what you said here. Like, this just happened yesterday. You know what I mean? So I measure what I say. And I didn't come out and make a sweeping determination on what I think should happen here with the program. But just so I'm clear, yes, I don't want Ryan Day's regime coaching the Buckeyes anymore. I think it's time for a change. I don't think that there's anything inherently special about Ryan Day as a head coach. I don't think there was from the beginning when he was hired. I didn't like the fact that nobody else was interviewed when he was hired. I thought he was the guy that was there and was the next best option. And he lucked out. He jumped a serious rung on the career ladder. And you generally will do that with someone who is very special. I don't think he is. I thought at one point he was a very talented scheme guy. I think that's even passed him by. And I don't think he has the number one quality you need to be a great head coach, and that is a great leader. I don't think he's a great leader at all. So as far as I'm concerned, when we talk about recruiting and everything, he had the infrastructure set in place to keep it rolling, and he's done an excellent job with that, no doubt. But he's not the guy for me. That's my personal opinion. Now, am I going to root against Ohio State? Hell no. Am I going to root for them to lose? I couldn't do that ever. But I started this show at the end of the Missouri game last year. I said, that's it. I'm going to do this. And I jumped in. I was very scared to do it, and I'd wanted to do it for years, but I jumped in and I said, I'm doing it. And I ordered all the equipment. And by the time it came in and I started the actual show, the first show I did, the news of the day was the press conference of the 4 big transfers. That was my first real show. And obviously at that point, things were looking very good. Like, okay, yes, that Missouri game and we're coming right after that Michigan game, unconscionable. And I was so pissed. That's why I started, right? But then I started seeing the changes in how Day was going to operate. And he took Julian Sayin on top of air in that class. That's something he would not have done. They had a 2-day meeting at the Woody about what they were going to do in that situation. Should they take Sayin or not? They wanted him more than Air. That was clear. They went after him first. Should they take him or not on top of him? And whether you think Air is the better kid or Sayin's the better prospect, the point is they never would have done that before. And he said, screw it. We're doing everything we need to do to win now. We're taking him. And he did. And that's not it. He decided he's going to give up play calling, and he gave up play calling, which I thought was something he obviously didn't want to do. He's definitely told us he didn't want to do it. And that was big. That was a tough step to take. So you saw him evolving. He fired Parker Fleming, and in Parker Fleming's place, we waited forever as to what he was going to do, but he decided to hire James Laurinaitis, which we all knew was the absolute right move. And I think that that's shown to be true. On many levels, recruiting, coaching, like it's great. Love James Laurinaitis, love him being in that role, and brings in Matt Guerrieri to help Jim Knowles out. I think so far that's been a success. Like the guys he's brought in, and Fahim Delane and Deshaun Stewart in this upcoming class of 2025. So the moves that he made got me thinking, all right, guy's made some changes in how he's operating. I'm going to give him 2 years of buy-in as a fan, because everybody was saying at the time, if he loses to Michigan this year, he's got to go unless he wins a national championship. We've talked about it all year. And my stance on that was, maybe my opinion will change after the game, but I don't see any way that I'm going to just bail on this guy after all these changes without seeing if his new plan, his new way of doing things is going to work. And giving him just 1 year to see if that's going to work is probably not fair of me. And I said that, and I meant that. And then we get to this game, and as we come into this game, I'm thinking, well, I know I've said all that. However, I said all that thinking that this Michigan game would come in, team would be a 9-win team this year, a healthy opponent, an opponent that had a Will Johnson, an opponent that had a decent quarterback. At the time, all we knew was, Alex Orji was probably going to be the dude. And what they were reporting on was, he was like Cam Warden or Cam Newton. And obviously that's not the way that worked out. And that team sucked. They were missing their best target offensively. They were in Colston Loveland. They were missing their best defensive player in Will Johnson. And they were a bad team. I've watched them lose a lot of games this year. I've watched them not even play good in some of the games they won. The fact that he lost to that team as a 23-point favorite and the way he looked afterwards, just deer in the headlights, 1,000-yard stare. He looked like just an absolute loser, man, an absolute loser. And I can't listen to him anymore. I can't support him anymore. I'm certainly going back on what I said. I'm out. I'm all the way out. So, I mean, I know a couple of guys were mad at me that I didn't say that yesterday, that somebody said I was part of the problem. My attitude was part of the problem on day for supporting a loser. I don't. And I want to bring this up too, is my man Day 1K says, Juck, do you really trust Day as a quarterback talent evaluator? I think we have to call that into question for sure. I think it's absolutely fair to question that. You know, Devin Brown, Kyle McCord. We talked about Will Howard in the offseason, and everybody who supported bringing Will Howard in, which I was one, said, well, if Lincoln Riley wants him, well, we know what he's done with quarterbacks, and Ryan Day want him, then obviously they see something that we're not seeing, right? So I couldn't wait for somebody to ask Ryan Day what it is you saw. And nobody asked him until about 2 months ago. Somebody finally asked him, when you were evaluating Will Howard, what is it that you saw? And you know what his answer was? He's big and he can see over the line. Okay, then. That squares it away. He's not the guy. He's just not the guy. We can't have this anymore. I don't think any of us are going to be able to come back from this and trust him ever again. He runs the program in a very NFL style. It's a professionalized program, and maybe that worked for a little bit. These are young guys, man. These are young dudes. When we look at success, when you look at the juice that the Michigan program had that came in and beat us, you know, the way they run their program is different. It's a college program. And I feel like this Buckeye program has been just too NFLized, and it's not right for the college game. And I don't like the way that he does it. I think it's time. And no, I don't trust him fully as a quarterback talent evaluator, but I got to say, a lot of people are very misunderstanding of what it is he does with quarterbacks when they talk about how good he is with quarterbacks. He is a scheme guy. He's not a quarterback fundamental guy. He doesn't teach them how to throw right. I talked to one of the most respected quarterback coaches in the Midwest, and he talked to me about this. You know, I'm asking like certain coaches, college coaches, like what is it, you know, that they do, and you know, he's not teaching them how to throw the ball mechanically. He's not making them better as a quarterback. He's helping them read and schemes like that. So a bit of a misconception, but listen, for all you Michigan fools that thought you were just going to come in here and run your mouth today, like this is for us to vent, get the hell out, or I'll pop you out. Not in the mood for you today. I came out and stood in the paint yesterday and listened to it all in the post game, and I didn't toss any of you. And Corey says, I agree with Juck. I'm out. Like him as a person, but I'm out. And that's the thing. I think a lot of us who were just feeling like we were going to be very rational about this, calm, cool, collected. And I think I'm being very rational. I've laid this all out, tried to take the emotion out of it. It's time. This guy's not the guy for us. And that's just what it is. Kevin says, I'm not afraid to let Day go, but the fan base is ignorant, thinking we can get Vrabel or some other big name. I mean, listen, this is what I want. Obviously, you take a swing at a couple of big names. You're always going to do that. But when someone asks the who you're going to get question, my immediate response to that is, if you were to ask me this question last year, and I said to you, Obviously, I didn't know. But if I said to you, well, the head coach at Duke and the head coach at James Madison, they're probably available, you would have laughed in my face. I'd have laughed in yours if you said the same thing. Lo and behold, the head coach at Duke is the head coach at Texas A&M, who is the absolute right guy. And if you sat across from him and talked to him, I bet you would know that, because the dude's awesome. The head coach at James Madison is now the head coach at Indiana, and we know what Signetti's done. And if you're a program like Indiana and you sat across from him, you'd probably figure that out too. Could it be Rhett Lashley at SMU? Could it be Jamie Chadwell at Liberty? Could it be Fran Brown at Syracuse? I don't know, but I bet you if we trust in our AD and he sits across from the guy and talks to him and listens to his plan and how he would go about every single aspect of the program, the processes he has in place, what he's about. Is he a killer? Does he understand things? He's going to find a guy. If you trust him and the people in charge and making that decision, it's always going to be a risk. There's always going to be a risk of making a bad hire. And we have certainly seen other programs make 2 bad hires in a row, and it can set them back decades. We saw it at Michigan. We saw it at Tennessee. Saw it at Nebraska when they moved on from Frank Solich and then Pelini. We've seen it happen. It'd be ignorant to think it can't happen to us. It would be ignorant to think that. But you got to ask yourself, are you cool with being in the conversation every year? Is that cool? And maybe popping up and doing it. You might be cool with it. Are you cool to losing to your rival 4 years in a row? I mean, you might be cool with it. A lot of people point to Urban and say, like, yeah, he was great at that, but he lost a freak game here that he shouldn't have lost to Purdue or to Iowa. Like, guys, in this system, that doesn't matter anymore. You can go have that brain fart. We don't want the guy that just beats all the scrubs and can't beat the big guys. We'll take the guy that's team sleepwalks out in a night in Iowa City and loses one here and there that is able to get his team playing like absolute madmen and schemes a good game plan to beat the big dogs. That's the kind of guy you want in this playoff system, you know? So I'm out. That's what it is. And nothing's going to change my mind at this point. Nothing is going to change my mind. Doreen says, hats off to Iggy and Sawyer too. Absolutely. You don't let that happen, man. You don't let that happen. James said, we almost beat Oregon at Oregon. We did. That's it. We almost did. Almost. Forty Phenom says Ohio Stadium should be renamed Ryan Day Stadium. How about Ryan Day Field at Ohio Stadium? Doreen says the stadium chanted "Fire Ryan Day" as we were leaving. Wow, that's the first I've heard of that. Pop me out then, bitch. Okay. Later, bud. Bucks Forever 65 says, how could you watch yesterday's game and not want Day and Kelly gone? It was a total disaster for 4 years in a row. And it was. And honestly, like, I've never been someone who's given them any excuses for any of the cheating. Like, I don't care. I'm not hearing it. Yeah, they're scumbags for whatever they did, but it's not, I'm not just letting you off the hook. Overcome it. I don't care. Not in that game. Call me illogical or irrational. Whatever it is. You made me deal with, if I get a lot of resentment when you make me go through another reset button where I got to wait a whole year to have that opportunity to get that back and listen to idiots like that right there chirping for a year. Good Cat says, time to let Sayan take the reins. Shepherd Ducks, one of our Duck guys. I know it's controversial for Buckeye fans, but would y'all consider hiring Jesse Minter for the Chargers? Dude's an elite defensive mind. He absolutely is, man. I don't know that would fly. I don't know. What do you guys think? Jesse Minter? He waved to in 22. Waved to the fans or the players when they were walking off the field. I don't think I could handle that. So anyway, guys, we're at an hour and 40. I've appreciated you guys joining me. I just wanted to come on and just kind of have a place where we could just kind of air our frustrations and go over the game. What's the best move going forward? I don't know. We still got a home playoff game. I'm probably going to go to that game, root this team on, but it's certainly going to feel a little awkward, man. It's going to feel a little awkward because I'm just out on this regime. There is a high possibility that Ross Bjork and the boosters and the powers that be, that the big money people decide they're going to try it one more year. I mean, there's a high probability that happens, and we may have to go through next year feeling the same way we might feel in this playoff game. So I think probably the best measure for me personally is to try to calm my irritation as much as possible and just support the team going forward the rest of this year until we find out what's going to happen. But I do think it's a high probability that nothing changes after this year. That's the attitude I got to take so that I'm not too disappointed if it doesn't. Corey says, you're right, though. I could never root for them to lose, even if it looks like Day would return. Nah, man. The guys that came here, the guys that bust their butt for Ohio State, that put on the scarlet and gray, they deserve better than that. And that would not be something I could ever do, nor want to do. Dave says, Juck, do you think we're overblowing the loss of recruits if we fire Day? I mean, if you look back to the transition from Urban to Day, you had a 17-man class. I think it was a top 15 class. I mean, but a top 15 class is nothing to sneeze at, by the way. But in the portal era, yeah, we're absolutely, I'm not overblowing it, but there are a lot of people that are. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. More than fine. You're going to be really good. Do you think there's any way? Let's put it this way. Do you think there is any way that if you make a change, that there's a coach that's going to come in here that Ohio State is not going to support exactly like Alabama supported DeBoer? They came in and this year, they did not have the Saban discount anymore. And they got themselves a top 3 class, and they had to spend a little more because they had to make sure that they set the precedent to the recruits in 26 and 27 that Alabama is still the place that the best players are going. That's the message they wanted to send to them. So they made sure they did whatever they had to do normally that they wouldn't have to do to get those kids in. And they've done it perfectly, flawlessly. They pretty much laid the blueprint to follow as far as that goes. So I'm not worried about it one bit, because when you've got people that are dedicated, that care as much as we all care for this program, it's going to happen one way or another. We're going to make it happen. Twelfth Chamber says Dion to Ohio State. Yeah, Corey says whoever they bring in is going to have a ton of resources. Absolutely. No doubt about that. They're going to get full buy-in. ODK73 says Ohio State needs more dogs. I couldn't agree more. I really like that Ryan Day has a really awesome culture. Guys never get in trouble. Like that's all great stuff. But you do need some dogs, man. Like, it's okay to have a couple of those dudes. They need a few more. Disdained Rogue says, hell no to Dion. Brad wants an Ohioan. I mean, obviously, if all things are even, I'm certainly going to defer to an Ohioan. No doubt. This gentleman says, I look like Justin Pugh. I have to look him up. Is that a lineman for the Giants? Is that who that is? Pull Saban. Saban wants no part of this era anymore. All right, guys. I appreciate you so much. Please do subscribe to the channel and like the video. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, Juck and Bucks out. Hey, it's Juck. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.